The ship was dying. Yuna knew this the moment the second engine exploded and sent her flying across the navigation deck. She was Telkari, a bird-like species with hollow bones and feathers the color of deep ocean water. Her people were known throughout the galaxy for their calm nature and mathematical minds. But right now, as the times Velith's grace times tumbled through empty space, Yuna felt only fear. 300 refugees huddled in the cargo holds below. They had fled from a war that had burned their worlds to ash. Families with children, elderly who could barely walk, young ones who had never known peace. They had trusted Yuna and her crew to bring them to safety. Now, they would all die together in the cold darkness between stars. Navigation systems failing, the computer announced in its calm voice. Life support at 40%. Estimated time to total failure, 6 hours. Yuna pulled herself back to her station. Her wing was broken. Blue blood floated in small drops around her. She ignored the pain and began working on the communication array. If she could send a distress call, perhaps someone would come. Perhaps there was still hope. But she knew the truth. They were in empty space, far from any shipping lanes. No Confederation vessel would hear them in time. Still, she had to try. She owed it to the people below who had put their lives in her hands. She programmed the distress call with their coordinates and a simple message. Please help. Then she broadcast it on every frequency the damaged array could reach. The signal scattered wildly across space, bouncing off debris and spreading in directions Yuna could not control. One of those directions was toward a small yellow star with 8 planets. The third planet was covered in blue water and green land. The beings who lived there called it Earth. Do-hun was tired. He had been working at the lunar listening post for 16 hours straight, scanning the stars for any sign of intelligent life. Humanity had been searching for decades. They had found nothing. Most people believed they were alone in the universe. Do-hun refused to believe this. The universe was too big, too old, too full of possibilities. Someone else had to be out there. He just had to find them. He was about to end his shift when his computer made a sound he had never heard before. A signal had arrived. Not random noise. Not natural radiation. A pattern. A structure. A message. His hands trembled as he began to analyze it. The signal was damaged and incomplete, but certain things were clear. It was not from Earth. It was not from any human source. It contained what appeared to be coordinates and a repeated phrase in an unknown language. Do-hun called his team immediately. Hana arrived first, her eyes wide with disbelief as she studied the data. She was the best communications specialist on the moon, maybe on Earth. Within an hour, she had cleaned up the signal enough to hear something that sounded like a voice. That's language, she whispered. Do-hun. That's actual language. Tae-woo came next. He was a xenolinguist, which meant he studied languages that might not even exist. For years, people had laughed at his profession. No one was laughing now. He worked through the night, using pattern recognition and probability mathematics to decode the message. By morning, he had a translation. It was not perfect, but it was enough. Emergency. Ship damaged. 300 souls aboard. Please help. The three of them stared at each other. This was the moment humanity had waited for. First contact with alien life. But this was not a greeting or a declaration. It was a cry for help. Someone out there was dying. The news reached Director Ji-yeon within the hour. She led the Korean Aerospace Administration, one of Earth's most advanced space agencies. She was a small woman with gray hair and a reputation for making hard decisions. This decision was the hardest of her life. The coordinates are far, she said, studying the data. Very far. We would need to use the experimental drive, the one we have never tested beyond the solar system. People will die if we don't go, Do-hun said. People might die if we do go, Ji-yeon replied. We know nothing about what's out there. These beings, whatever they are, might be dangerous. They might see us as a threat, or as food. Hana stepped forward. Director, they sent a distress call. They asked for help. If we ignore that, what does it say about us? Ji-yeon was quiet for a long moment. She looked out the window at the earth hanging in the black sky, blue and green and beautiful, home to 8 billion people who had no idea what was about to happen. Prepare the Times Horizon's Edge asterisk, she said finally. Find volunteers only. No one goes who doesn't understand the risks. Captain Junho understood the risks. He understood them better than anyone. He had commanded the Times, Horizon's Edge Times, since it was built, had tested its systems and pushed its limits. He knew the ship was strong, but he also knew that space was unforgiving, and the unknown was dangerous. Still, when Director Ji-yeon asked for volunteers, he was the first to step forward. His crew followed without hesitation. Salmon, his chief engineer, was a genius who could fix anything with spare parts and determination. Min-jae, his pilot, could fly through an asteroid field blindfolded. Eun-ji, his medical officer, had saved lives in the worst disaster zones on Earth. These were the best people he had ever served with. He trusted them completely. They loaded the ship with supplies: food, water, medicine, blankets. They had no idea what the aliens would need, so they brought everything they could think of. They did not bring weapons. The Times Horizon's Edge Times was an exploration vessel, not a warship. Earth had built it to find new worlds and make new friends. Junho hoped that was what they would do. The night before departure, he stood on the observation deck and looked at the stars. Somewhere out there, 300 beings were waiting to die. They had called for help, and humanity had answered. It was terrifying and wonderful at the same time. Salmon joined him. She was quiet for a while, then said, "Do you think we're ready for this?" "No," Junho admitted. "But I don't think anyone is ever ready for something like this. We just have to do our best." Sighed. "What if they're hostile? Then we run." "But I don't think they will be. They're refugees, Salmon. They're scared and hurt and far from home. That's something we can understand." Salmon nodded slowly. "Then let's go bring them home." The next morning, the Times Horizon's Edge Times left Earth orbit. 12 humans aboard. One small ship. One enormous unknown. They activated the experimental drive, and the stars stretched into lines of light around them. Behind them, Earth grew smaller and smaller until it was just another point of light in the darkness. Ahead of them was the rest of the galaxy and everything it contained. Junho stood on the bridge and watched the universe unfold before him. "Signal locked," Hana reported from her station. "Coordinates confirmed. We'll arrive in 18 hours. 18 hours until first contact. 18 hours until everything changed." Junho took a deep breath. "All hands. This is the captain. We are now officially the first human vessel to leave the solar system. Whatever happens next, I want you to know that I'm proud of every single one of you. Let's go save some lives." The crew cheered. The ship flew on, and in the darkness ahead, Yuna and her passengers waited, not knowing that help was coming from the one place the galaxy had learned to fear: the quarantined world, the death planet, the home of the species that should never have reached the stars, Earth. The Times Horizon's Edge Times dropped out of faster-than-light travel and into chaos. Junho gripped his chair as alarms screamed across the bridge. Through the view screen, he saw something that made his blood run cold. A ship was tumbling slowly through space, smoke and debris trailing behind it like a wounded animal leaving a trail of blood. That had to be the vessel that sent the distress call. But it was not alone. 3 other ships surrounded it, sleek and black and covered in sharp angles that reminded Junho of predators circling prey. "Captain," Min-jae said from the pilot's seat, his voice tight with controlled fear. "Those ships are powering weapons." "Hana, open a channel," Junho ordered. "All frequencies. Let them know we're here to help." Hana worked her console. Channel open. Junho stood and faced the view screen. Attention all vessels. This is Captain Junho of the Earth Ship Times, Horizon's Edge **. We received a distress call from this location and have come to offer assistance. We are not armed and mean no harm. Please respond. 1. Silence. Then a voice came through, harsh and cold. The translation software struggled with it, but the meaning was clear enough. Unknown vessel. You are interfering with Keth Dominion operations. Leave now or be destroyed. The cargo aboard that ship belongs to us. Junho felt sick. Cargo. They were calling the refugees cargo. He looked at his crew and saw the same disgust on their faces. These were slavers. They had come to take those people and sell them like property. Somin, he said quietly. What can you tell me about those ships? Somin's fingers flew across her engineering console. They're more advanced than us, Captain. Better weapons, better shields. If they decide to shoot, we won't last long. And the damaged ship? Can it move? No. Engines are completely destroyed. Whoever's aboard, they're stuck. Junho turned back to the view screen. He thought about his orders, which were simple. Make contact. Assess the situation. Report back to Earth. No one had told him to fight. No one had told him to be a hero. The smart thing, the safe thing, would be to leave now and come back with help. But by then, those people would be gone. Taken. Sold. Hurt. He could not live with that. This is Captain Junho, he said over the open channel. We will not leave. Those are living beings aboard that ship, not cargo. They called for help, and we answered. We will not abandon them. The Keth commander's response was a laugh. You are either very brave or very stupid, little ship. Either way, you will burn. The 3 black ships turned toward the Times Horizon's Edge **. Weapons began to glow, with building energy. Minjae, Junho said calmly. Get us moving. Somin, I need ideas. Hana, keep trying to reach that damaged ship. Taewoo, see if you can learn anything about these Keth. Everyone else, hold on. The ship lurched as Minjae threw them into motion. Junho had chosen him as pilot for one reason. The man was insane behind the controls. He flew like gravity was a suggestion, and physics was more of a guideline. The Times Horizon's Edge Times spun and dove between the Keth vessels, moving in ways that should have been impossible. They're having trouble tracking us, Somin reported, studying her screens. Their targeting systems rely on predictable movement patterns. Minjae's flying is confusing them. Number 7. Can we keep that up forever? No. Eventually they'll adapt. We need something else. Junho thought hard. They had no weapons. They were outmatched in every way. The only advantage they had was that the Keth did not understand them. They did not know what humans were capable of. Neither did humans, if he was being honest. Unji, he called to his medical officer. What's the noisiest piece of equipment in your medical bay? Unji looked confused. The neural scanner. It puts out electromagnetic interference on about 40 different frequencies. It's a real problem when we're trying to... She stopped. Her eyes widened as she understood. You want to blind them? Can you boost the signal? Broadcast it across our entire hull? I can try. Do it. Somin. Help her. Minjae. When that signal goes out, I want you to fly us straight at those ships. Make them think we've gone crazy. Minjae grinned. Captain, I'm way ahead of you. The next few minutes were controlled madness. Somin and Unji worked frantically, rerouting power and connecting systems that were never meant to be connected. The Times Horizon's Edge Times shook and groaned as Minjae pushed it harder than it had ever been pushed. Then Somin shouted, Ready. Do it. Junya ordered. The ship screamed. Not out loud, but in every electromagnetic frequency at once. It was like a star being born. a burst of chaotic energy that flooded the space around them with noise. The Keth ships faltered. Their weapons flickered and died. Their movements became uncertain. Minjay flew straight at them. The Keth scattered. They had never seen anything like this. Their sensors showed nothing but static. Their communications were jammed. They were fighting blind against an enemy that seemed to have no fear at all. "They're retreating," Hana reported, her voice filled with disbelief. "They're actually retreating." Junho allowed himself one moment of relief. Then he returned to the crisis at hand. "Take us to the damaged ship." Now, Yuna could not believe what she was seeing. Through the flickering view screen, she watched the 3 Keth ships turn and flee. They had been moments away from boarding. She had been preparing herself for death, or worse, for slavery. And then, this strange little ship had appeared from nowhere and driven them off. The ship was now approaching. It was small and inelegant, shaped like a fat cylinder with engines on one end. Its design was completely unfamiliar. When she tried to scan it, her damaged sensors returned results that made no sense. The beings inside were carbon-based, warm-blooded, and bipedal. They breathed oxygen and consumed water. Their planet of origin was listed as Sol 3, coordinates deep in a region of space marked with ancient warnings. Yuna's feathers stood up in shock. Sol 3. The Death World. The quarantine planet. These beings were humans. They were coming to help her. "This is Captain Junho of the Times Horizon's Edge *", a voice said over the communication channel. The translator struggled with the strange language. But it managed. "We received your distress call. Permission to dock and render assistance?" Yuna's mind raced. Humans were supposed to be monsters. Every species in the Confederation knew the stories. They came from a world of extreme gravity and harsh conditions. They ate other animals. They fought wars against each other for territory and resources. They were violent, unpredictable, and dangerous. But they had just risked their lives to save strangers. They were asking permission to help. "Permission granted," Yuna heard herself say. The human ship connected to hers with a gentle thump. An airlock opened. And then they were there, standing in her corridor. The first humans she had ever seen. They were smaller than she expected. Soft-looking, with no claws or shells or natural weapons. They had flat faces and round eyes, and hair on their heads in different colors. They moved with a strange fluid grace that seemed wrong for their heavy gravity origin. The one in front, presumably Captain Junho, looked at her with an expression she could not read. Then, he did something that shocked her to her core. He bowed. A gesture of respect. "I'm sorry we took so long," he said. "Are your people hurt? We brought medical supplies and food. Whatever you need, we'll do our best to provide." Yuna stared at him. Behind him, other humans were already moving into the ship, carrying boxes and equipment. One of them, a female called Unji, was heading straight for the medical bay without even being asked. She seemed to know exactly where the injured would be. "You came," Yuna said quietly. "You actually came. You actually came." "Of course we came," Junho said. It was such a simple answer. Such a human answer. Yuna felt something break inside her. Some wall she had built between herself and hope. Tears formed in her eyes, real tears, which Telkari only produced in moments of overwhelming emotion. "There are 300 people aboard," she said. "Refugees. They have lost everything. They are afraid." "Then let's go tell them they're safe," Junho said. "Let's go tell them they're not alone anymore." Yuna led him down to the cargo holds. The refugees looked up as they entered, their faces showing fear and exhaustion. They had been running for so long. They had seen so much death. Junho stopped in front of them. He did not speak their languages, and they did not speak his. But somehow, when he smiled and held out his hands in a gesture of peace, they understood. They were not alone anymore. Someone had heard them. Someone had come. and nothing in the galaxy would ever be the same again. The journey to Confederation space took 3 days. 3 days of repairs and healing, and careful conversations. 3 days for the refugees to learn that their rescuers were humans, and 3 days for the humans to learn what that meant to the rest of the galaxy. Yuna told them everything. She sat with Captain Junho in the small meeting room of the Times, Horizon's Edge Times, and explained the history that humanity had never known. The Galactic Confederation had existed for 12,000 years. 47 species, working together in peace, trading, and building and exploring. It was not perfect, no society ever was, but it was stable and mostly fair. For 12,000 years, they had grown and prospered, but they had also made rules. One of those rules was about Earth. Your planet was discovered a long time ago, Yuna said. Our scientists studied it from a distance. They saw the conditions there. The high gravity, the extreme temperatures, the predators and diseases and natural disasters. They could not believe anything could survive in such a place. But we did survive, Junho said. Yes. And that was what frightened them. Yuna's feathers shifted uncomfortably. They saw how you survived. Your history of war. Your competition for resources. Your willingness to kill and to die. They decided that you were too dangerous to contact. They placed your system under quarantine and ordered all ships to stay away. Junho was quiet for a moment. So you thought we were monsters. Many still do. The stories say that if humans ever reached the stars, they would conquer everything they found. That is why the Keth feared you. That is why they ran. We just wanted to help. I know, Yuna said softly. I know that now. But the Confederation will need convincing. Convincing the Confederation turned out to be one of the hardest things humanity had ever attempted. When the Times Horizon's Edge Times arrived at Central Station, a massive structure that served as the seat of galactic government, they were greeted not with welcome but with warships. Ambassador Jisoo handled it with remarkable calm. She had been sent from Earth the moment the situation became clear, traveling on a second ship that arrived just hours after Junho. She was a diplomat who had negotiated peace between nations that had hated each other for centuries. She was ready for this. We come in peace, she said over every channel. We have returned your refugees safely. We ask only for the chance to speak. The Confederation Council agreed to hear them, but the chamber was filled with hostility. Representatives from dozens of species sat in a great circle, and most of them looked at Jisoo and her human guards with fear or disgust. You should not be here, the representative from the Drell Collective said. He was tall and thin, with skin like gray stone. The quarantine exists for good reason. You are a threat to everything we have built. We have threatened no one, Jisoo replied calmly. We came because someone asked for help. We will leave, if you wish, but we will not apologize for saving lives. You drove off Keth ships. You have made enemies of the Dominion. The Dominion takes slaves. Are they your friends? That caused a stir. The Keth Dominion had been a problem for centuries, raiding border worlds and taking prisoners to sell. The Confederation had never found the will to stop them. An old Telkari rose to speak. This was Boram, Yuna's grandmother, one of the most respected elders in the galaxy. Her feathers were silver with age, and her voice was soft, but carried clearly. I have spoken with my granddaughter, she said. She has told me what these humans did. They came without weapons. They came without demands. They risked their lives for strangers. This is not the behavior of monsters. This is the behavior of people we should want to know. They are dangerous, another representative insisted. Yes, Boram agreed. They are dangerous, but so is a fire. A fire can burn down your home, or it can cook your food and keep you warm. It depends on how you use it. She looked directly at Jisoo. The question is not whether humans are dangerous. The question is what they will be dangerous to. The debate continued for hours. Jisoo answered every question honestly, even when the truth was uncomfortable. Yes, humans had fought wars. Yes, they had done terrible things to each other. But they had also built art, and music, and medicine. They had learned from their mistakes. They were trying to be better. We are not perfect, Jisoo admitted. We have never claimed to be. But we believe that helping others is right. We believe that freedom is worth fighting for. If that makes us dangerous, then yes, we are dangerous. We will be dangerous to anyone who threatens the innocent. While the politicians argued, the crew of the Times Horizon's Edge Times explored Central Station. They had been given limited access, watched constantly by security forces, but they used that freedom to meet ordinary people. Taewoo discovered that alien species loved human music. He played old songs on his guitar in a public garden, and within an hour, a crowd of hundreds had gathered. Some of them were crying. One elderly being told him that in 400 years of life, she had never felt emotions like the ones his music gave her. Hana found that humans communicated faster and more creatively than almost any other species. She could solve communication problems in minutes that had stumped alien experts for years. Her mind made connections that others could not see. Minjae learned that most species found physical competition pointless. They did not understand why humans would run races or play games that served no survival purpose. When he explained that humans pushed their limits for fun, they looked at him like he was insane. And Yoonji discovered something that would change everything. She was helping in a medical center, treating refugees who were still recovering from their ordeal. A young alien asked her how humans could be so strong when they had no natural armor or weapons. Yoonji thought about it. "We're not strong compared to most Earth animals," she said. "We survived because we work together, and because we don't give up. Our bodies are actually quite fragile." The alien doctor nearby made a strange sound. "Fragile? You have redundant organs. Your bones heal stronger after they break. Your immune system can adapt to almost any disease. Compared to most species in the Confederation, you are nearly indestructible." Yoonji stared at her. "That's normal for us. It is not normal for anyone else." The news spread quickly. Humans were not just aggressive, they were built for survival in ways that no other species could match. Their bodies were weapons of endurance. Their minds were weapons of creativity. And their hearts were weapons of something else entirely. A fierce, stubborn refusal to abandon anyone they cared about. The Keth Dominion sent a message to the Confederation Council. It was simple and direct. Give us the humans, or face war. Will. The council fell into chaos. Many wanted to send the humans away and hope the problem would disappear. Others argued that surrendering to threats would only encourage more threats. Borum stood again. "If we give them what they want, we prove that we are weak. The Dominion will never stop. They will take more and more until there is nothing left." She looked around the chamber. The humans drove off 3 Keth ships without firing a single weapon. "Perhaps they are the allies we have needed all along." "An alliance with humans?" someone shouted. "Madness!" But others were not so sure. The Ravani, an aquatic species known for their wisdom, spoke in favor of at least considering the idea. The Morthan, beings made of living crystal, pointed out that humans had proven their honor by returning the refugees unharmed. Jisoo stepped forward. "We do not ask you to trust us completely. Trust must be earned. But give us the chance to earn it. Let us work beside you. Let us face this threat together, and if we prove ourselves unworthy, you can send us away forever." The vote was close. Closer than anyone expected. But in the end, the Confederation agreed to a trial alliance. Humans would be allowed to stay. They would be watched, and tested, and judged. Captain Junho received the news on his ship. He gathered his crew and told them what it meant. They were not just explorers anymore. They were representatives of their entire species. Everything they did would be measured and remembered. "No pressure," Minjae said, and everyone laughed. But they all understood the weight of it. They had come to save 300 lives. Now, they might have to save much more than that. Yuna officially joined their crew that night. She would serve as liaison between the humans and the Confederation, translating not just languages, but ideas and cultures. She was the first alien to work alongside humans as an equal. "I still think you're all crazy," she told Junho. "Probably," he admitted. "But that's what makes us fun." Yuna made a sound that might have been a laugh. "I suppose I'll find out." Outside the viewport, the stars burned cold and distant. Somewhere out there, the Keth Dominion was preparing for war. But aboard the Times Horizon's Edge Asterisk, a human captain and a Telkari navigator looked at those stars together and felt something new. Hope. Earth learned the truth in a single broadcast. Director Ji-yun stood before cameras in Seoul and told humanity that they were not alone in the universe. There were thousands of species among the stars. There was a galactic government. There were wonders beyond imagination. And there was a war coming. The reaction was chaos at first. Fear, confusion, disbelief. Some people refused to accept it. Others panicked. But then, something remarkable happened. Something that proved everything the aliens believed about humans. They started working together. Within a week, old enemies were sitting at the same tables. Countries that had pointed weapons at each other for generations began sharing resources and knowledge. Scientists from every nation formed teams to study the alien technology that Jisoo and Junho sent back. Engineers worked around the clock to build new ships, new tools, new defenses. Do-hun led the research effort from the lunar listening post. He barely slept. There was too much to learn, too much to understand. The Confederation had 12,000 years of advancement, and humanity needed to catch up in months. "We can't match their technology," he told Ji-yeon during one late-night meeting. "Not yet. But we can adapt it. We can make it work with what we have. That's what humans have always done." "What do you need?" "Everything. Every scientist, every engineer, every creative mind on Earth. This isn't a project for one country anymore. This is a project for our entire species." Ji-yeon made it happen. The Global Unity Accords were signed within 2 weeks. Every nation agreed to share their best people and their best resources. For the first time in history, humanity truly acted as one. In Confederation space, the humans continued to prove themselves. The Times, Horizon's Edge Times, joined patrol missions along the border, watching for Keth raiders. They were faster and more aggressive than any Confederation crew, willing to take risks that others considered insane. Captain Junho, now promoted to admiral for his actions, led a squadron of mixed ships, human vessels and Confederation craft working side by side. It was not easy. The different species had different ways of thinking, different approaches to problems. But slowly, they learned to trust each other. The Battle of Meridian Station was the first real test. A Keth fleet attacked a civilian outpost, overwhelming the local defenders. The distress call went out, and Junho answered it before the council had even finished debating whether to send help. "We're going," he told Yuna, as they prepared to jump. "Those people don't have time for politics. The council won't like it. The council isn't there. We are." They arrived to find the station in flames. Keth ships swarmed around it like insects, firing at escape pods, slaughtering anyone who tried to flee. It was exactly the kind of cruelty that humans had learned to hate in their own history. Junho's squadron attacked without hesitation. They flew into the middle of the enemy fleet, drawing fire away from the civilians. Minjae performed maneuvers that should have torn his ship apart, but human vessels were built for a death world. They could take punishment that would destroy anything else. Salmon turned their deflector array into an improvised weapon, creating energy pulses that disrupted enemy shields. Unji coordinated rescue operations, guiding damaged pods to safety while the battle raged around her. Hana jammed enemy communications, making it impossible for them to coordinate. And Junho gave orders that no Confederation officer would have given. "All ships, Protect the civilians. I don't care about the enemy fleet. I don't care about glory or victory. Save those people. That's the only thing that matters." His crews obeyed without question. Humans and aliens together, they formed a wall between the Keth and the innocent. They took damage. They lost ships. But they held. When Confederation reinforcements finally arrived, they found something that had never happened before. A Keth fleet was retreating. Not because they were outgunned, but because they were outfought. Because a group of humans and their allies had refused to let them win. The victory at Meridian Station changed everything. Suddenly, the humans were not just strange newcomers to be watched and worried about. They were heroes. They had done what the Confederation had failed to do for centuries. They had stood up to the Dominion and won. More importantly, they had shown a different way to fight. Not for territory or resources, but for people, for lives, for the simple idea that the strong should protect the weak. Other species began to notice. The Ravani officially requested human advisors to help train their defense forces. The Morthan proposed joint research projects. Young beings from a dozen worlds applied to serve aboard human ships. And on Earth, the first true warships began to take shape. They were not like Confederation vessels, designed by committee and built by the lowest bidder. They were human ships, made with human philosophy. Overwhelming firepower, incredible durability, and the expectation that the crew would push them far beyond their limits. "These ships are over-engineered," a Telkari engineer observed when she toured the construction yards on Luna. "You've built in redundancy on top of redundancy. It's wasteful." "Wasteful? It's not wasteful," Salmon told her. Salmon had returned to Earth to help with the building program, sharing everything she had learned. "It means that when something breaks, the ship keeps fighting. When the shields fail, the armor holds. When the armor fails, the crew keeps going. That's what humans do. We don't stop." "Why not?" Salmon thought about it. "Because someone out there needs us. Because giving up means letting them down. That's not something we can live with." The Telkari did not fully understand, but she respected it. The Keth Dominion watched all of this with growing terror. They had built their empire on fear. They conquered because other species were too weak or too divided to resist. But humans were neither. Humans were strong. Humans were united. And worst of all, humans made others strong and united too. "They must be destroyed," the Dominion Overlord declared. "Before they spread their disease any further. Before they convince the galaxy that we can be beaten." The War Council agreed. A massive fleet was assembled. Hundreds of ships with thousands of weapons. Their target was not the Confederation. Not the border worlds. Not the new allies. Their target was Earth. "If we destroy their home world, we destroy their spirit," the Overlord said. "They will scatter and fade. The galaxy will remember that resistance is futile." The invasion fleet launched in secret, taking hidden routes to avoid detection. They would arrive at Earth before anyone knew they were coming. They would burn everything they found. Admiral Junho was aboard the Times Horizon's Edge Times when the warning came. A Ravani scout had spotted the fleet and sent a desperate message before being destroyed. 500 ships, Yuna said, her voice hollow. 500. Junho felt cold. Earth's entire defense fleet was 30 vessels. 30 against 500. It was impossible. But impossible had never stopped humans before. "Send word to Earth," he ordered. "Tell them what's coming. Tell them to prepare everything they have." "What are you going to do?" Junho looked at his crew. These people had followed him across the galaxy. They had fought beside him, bled beside him, never complained, and never quit. He could not ask more of them than they had already given. But he was going to anyway. "We're going to buy them time," he said. "Every minute we can give them is another minute to prepare. Another minute for help to arrive. Another minute for people to say goodbye." He paused. "I won't order anyone to come with me. This is volunteer only." No one moved. No one asked to leave. Salmon smiled and began running calculations for the jump. Minjae cracked his knuckles and settled into the pilot's seat. Unji started preparing the medical bay for casualties. Yuna stood at Junho's side. "My people will come," she said. "The Ravani and the Morthen too. You won't fight alone. Run. 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 Can they get there in time? I don't know. But we'll try." Her feathers rippled with emotion. "That's what we learned from you. We'll try." "Wud." Her feathers rippled. "Another." Junho nodded. He opened a channel to the entire squadron. "Human and alien ships alike. This is Admiral Junho. You all know what's coming. I won't lie to you, it's bad. But I've learned something in the past year. I've learned that when you stand up for what's right, you're never really alone. Others will stand with you. That's what we're going to do today. We're going to stand, and we're going to fight, and we're going to show the Dominion that some things are worth dying for." He took a breath. "All ships, set course for Earth. Maximum speed. Let's go home." The stars stretched into lines. The fleet jumped. And somewhere ahead, Earth waited for the storm that was coming. The Dominion fleet entered the Sol system like a black wave. 500 ships spread across the darkness, blotting out the stars. On Earth, 8 billion people looked up and saw their death approaching. Director Ji-yun stood in the command center beneath the mountains of Korea. Screens covered every wall, showing the enemy fleet, the tiny human defense force, and the impossible numbers. She had prepared for this. She had done everything possible to give her people a chance. It was not enough. She knew that. Everyone knew that. But they would fight anyway. "All stations report ready," her aide said. "The fleet is in position. Ground defenses are active. Evacuation of coastal cities is complete." Ji-yun nodded. Millions of people were underground now, hiding in shelters that might not survive what was coming. Millions more had refused to leave their homes. They wanted to see the sky, they said. They wanted to face the end with their eyes open. She understood. She felt the same way. "Open a channel to Admiral Junho," she ordered. Junho's face appeared on her screen. He looked tired but calm. Behind him, she could see his bridge crew working at their stations, preparing for battle. "Director," he said, "we're in position. 20 ships from the Confederation are with us. More are on the way, but—" He didn't finish. "I know," Ji-yun said. "They won't arrive in time." "No." She looked at this man who had started all of this. 1 year ago, he had been a simple captain who answered a distress call. Now he was an admiral about to die defending his planet. She wished she had something wise to say, something inspiring. But there were no words for this moment. "Give them hell, Admiral," she said quietly. Junyu smiled. "Yes, ma'am." The battle began with fire. The Dominion fleet advanced in perfect formation, confident in their overwhelming numbers. They had crushed larger forces before. This would be easy. It was not easy. The human ships attacked first, diving straight into the enemy fleet. They were small and few, but they moved like nothing the Keth had ever seen. Minjae led the fighters, weaving between massive warships, drawing fire away from the larger vessels. He flew through gaps that should have been too small, pulled turns that should have torn his ship apart. "You can't catch me," he whispered to himself, laughing as missiles exploded behind him. "You'll never catch me." Salmon had spent weeks preparing for this. Every human ship was equipped with her innovations. Sensors that could see through Keith jamming, shields that adapted to enemy weapons, communication systems that couldn't be disrupted. It wasn't enough to win, but it was enough to hurt them. And humans were very good at hurting things that threatened them. Hana broadcast on every frequency, jamming enemy communications and sending false signals. The Keth fleet, designed to work in perfect coordination, began to stumble. Ships fired on their own allies. Formations broke apart. Chaos spread like a disease. Admiral Junho commanded from the Times Horizon's Edge *, directing the battle with a calm that steadied everyone who heard him. He was everywhere at once, moving his ships like pieces on a board, finding weaknesses and exploiting them. But it wasn't enough. It couldn't be enough. For every Keth ship they destroyed, 10 more took its place. The human fleet was taking damage. Ships were dying. "We need more time," Junho said. Unji looked up from her station. She had been listening to the enemy communications, using the translation software to understand their chatter, and she had heard something that gave her an idea. "Admiral, the Keth crews aren't all Keth. Most of them are slaves from conquered species. They're fighting because they have to, not because they want to." Junho stared at her. "You want to talk to them? I want to offer them something they've never been offered. Freedom." The broadcast went out on every channel, translated into 100 languages. "This is the human ship times Horizon's Edge asterisk. We know many of you did not choose this fight. We know you were taken from your homes and forced to serve the Dominion. We're offering you a choice. Surrender now, and we will protect you. We will free you. You will never be slaves again." At first, nothing happened. Then one Keth ship stopped firing. Its engines cut out. A moment later, another ship did the same. Then 10. Then 50. The Dominion overlord screamed orders from his flagship. "Execute the traitors! Execute them all!" But his crews hesitated. They had heard the offer too. They had seen what humans did for strangers. The battle turned. Not completely, the Dominion still had hundreds of loyal ships. But now they were fighting on two fronts. Against the humans ahead and against rebellion within. The Confederation reinforcements arrived like the dawn. Telkari ships dropped out of faster-than-light travel first, their sleek forms cutting through the chaos. Then came the Ravani. Their vessels strange and beautiful, designed for species that lived in water. Then, the Morthan, ships of living crystal that sang as they flew. Elder Borum commanded the Telkari fleet. Her voice was calm but fierce. "This is Elder Borum of the Telkari. We stand with humanity. We stand with freedom, and we will not leave." Other voices joined her. Ravani, Morthan, others who had come simply because they believed it was right. "We will not leave," they said together. "We will not leave." Junho felt tears on his face. He wiped them away and gave the order. "All ships, full attack. Let's end this." The final push was brutal and fast. Human and Confederation ships fought side by side, each covering the other's weaknesses. The Keth fleet crumbled. Slave ships continued to surrender. Loyal ships tried to flee but found their escape routes blocked. Minjay led a squadron straight at the Dominion flagship. It was suicide, everyone knew that. But he flew anyway, weaving through defensive fire, getting closer and closer. "This is for everyone you ever hurt," he said, and fired every weapon he had. The flagship's shields collapsed. Its engines exploded. It began to tumble, powerless and broken. Admiral Junho opened a channel. "Dominion Overlord, your fleet is destroyed. Your slaves are free. You have lost. Surrender now, and we will spare your life." There was a long silence. Then the Overlord's voice, filled with hate and disbelief. "You are vermin. You are nothing. How dare you?" "We dare because someone has to," Junho said quietly. "We dare because no one else would. That's what humans do. We stand up. We fight back. We protect the weak. And we never, ever give up." He paused. "Surrender. Now. It's over." The Overlord screamed in rage and cut the connection. His ship exploded moments later, destroyed by its own crew in a final act of defiance against their master. The battle was over. Earth survived. Barely, and with scars that would take generations to heal. But it survived. The Keth Dominion collapsed in the weeks that followed, as subject species rose up and claimed their freedom. The Confederation transformed, inspired by humanity's example to become something stronger and better. 1 year after the battle, Yuna stood on a balcony on Earth, looking out at a city that was being rebuilt. Admiral Junho stood beside her. "I still don't understand you," she said. Junho smiled. "That's okay. We don't always understand ourselves. You came to help strangers. You risked everything for people you had never met. You freed slaves, fought tyrants, changed the galaxy." She shook her head. "Why?" Junho thought about it for a long time. "Because someone had to," he said finally. "Because it was right. Because when we heard that distress call, we couldn't just ignore it. That's not who we are." Yuna looked at him. "The quarantine warned us that you were dangerous, that you would conquer and destroy." "We are dangerous," Junho admitted. "But not to everyone. Only to those who prey on the innocent. Only to those who think the strong should rule the weak." He looked at the sky, at the stars that now belong to everyone. "We're dangerous to bullies. We're dangerous to tyrants. We're dangerous to anyone who thinks they can hurt people and get away with it." Yuna made that sound that was almost a laugh. "So the warning was right. Too, maybe. But it should have said something else too." Junho smiled. "It should have said that humans would make everyone around them braver. That we would make them want to be better." Junho smiled. "That we would teach them to stand up and fight for what matters." Yuna was quiet. Then she said, "No," Junho said. It reached exactly the right one. Above them, the stars burned on forever. And somewhere out there, in the vast darkness, other species were learning a new truth about the galaxy. The humans had come. The humans were dangerous, and they would never stop protecting the innocent. Not ever. Not for anything.